My mom took $3 million from the man who killed my sister. What I did next shocked everyone. If your sister walked into a luxury hotel and never came out, and 10 years later, you discovered your own mother had been hiding the truth by betrayed your entire family, what would you do? Before I continue, drop your comment. Would you stay silent or expose her? People talk about the day their life changed like it was some grand event, like the clouds shifted or fate whispered something into their ears. For me, the day my entire world bent out of shape wasn't dramatic at all. It was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet you feel in your bones. I was 13 when my sister, Vanessa, died. Please, before we continue the story, do 4 things. Subscribe to our channel for more shocking and thrilling stories. Keycap 2, like this video to show your support. Keycap 3, share it with your friends and family so they don't miss this unbelievable story. Keycap 4, comment below and tell us what you would do in this situation. We love reading your thoughts. Your support helps us bring more true life drama and suspense right to your screen. Sparkling heart. To the world. She was 26, beautiful, confident, and full of ambition. To me, she was the only person who made life make sense. She was my compass, the steady one, the one who held my hand at night when I was scared of the dark. She was supposed to pick me up from school that afternoon. She never did. We didn't know at the time, but while I waited on the school steps, swinging my backpack and checking the gate every 2 minutes, she was already gone. My mother, our mother, was unusually calm that evening. Mothers panic. My mother didn't. She made a few phone calls. Said she was handling things. My brother cried. I cried. But she just kept repeating the same sentence. The police will figure it out. She never said we will. Never said I'm scared. Not even where is she. It didn't make sense to me then. It makes too much sense now. The police found out Vanessa had checked into a hotel in Beverly Hills. A luxury place. Very expensive. The kind of hotel people go to make memories or mistakes. They said she was seen entering the lobby on camera. They said she walked in alone. They said they couldn't share further details. They also said something else, something I would never forget. Your mother has already been down here to discuss everything. Already? Before telling us? Before crying? Before asking questions? That was the first red flag. I was too young to understand. When they told us she had passed under unclear circumstances, everything inside me crashed. There was no dramatic investigation, no emotional officer giving us answers, no camera footage released to help us find closure. Just silence. And my mother seemed comfortable inside that silence. She didn't ask for a second autopsy. She didn't push for more details. She didn't raise her voice or demand justice. Instead, she told us we needed to move forward. She said digging into the past would bring unnecessary complications. Her words, not mine. I was a child, but not stupid. And even then, I sensed she was protecting something, someone, but it wasn't us. The years passed with the kind of heaviness grief leaves behind. Birthdays felt incomplete. Graduations felt half-celebrated. Every milestone reminded me of the sister who never got to stand beside me. But life, in its cruel way, keeps moving. By the time I turned 23, something about my mother snapped out of place. Or maybe it had been cracked all along and was only now showing. She started living lavishly. Trips to Dubai, Paris, Greece. Designer clothes she didn't hide. Dinners worth hundreds of thousands. Younger men chauffeuring her around like she was some royal queen. My siblings and I stared at her in confusion. "Where's all this money coming from?" we asked. She gave us a straight face and said, "Family inheritance." That was when I finally realized grief wasn't the only thing we had been living with. We had been living with a lie. Because our family had no inheritance. We barely had stability. So where did all that money come from? No matter how you turn the puzzle around, pieces didn't fit. But the turning point, the moment the world shifted again, came one quiet evening. She was on the phone. Her voice wasn't calm this time. She wasn't collected. She wasn't emotionless. She was panicking. "No, you promised me. You owe me more." Her voice cracked. I had never heard fear from her. Not once. Not when my sister died. Not when our father left. Not when money was scarce. But she was afraid now. And I knew, deep inside, that whoever was on that call was connected to Vanessa. I didn't know how. I didn't know why. But I knew. And for the first time in 10 years, it didn't feel like we lost my sister to fate. It felt like we had been living inside a cover-up, a secret held by the one person who was supposed to protect us. My mother. I wish I could say I calmly pieced everything together. I didn't. I shook. My heart raced. My hands turned cold. It felt like the grief of 13-year-old me had come back with claws. Because if my mother was hiding something, what exactly had happened in that hotel? How did my mother meet the man she was arguing with? Why was she demanding more money now? And why had she never mourned properly in the first place? The truth was coming. I could feel it, and it would cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. If grief had a sound, it would be quiet. But suspicion? Suspicion is loud. It scratches at the back of your mind until you either listen or you lose your sanity. For 10 years after Vanessa's death, we lived modestly. We struggled the way normal families do. Sometimes late rent, sometimes arguments over bills, sometimes rice and stew stretching for too many nights. Nothing luxurious, nothing glamorous. So when my mother suddenly transformed into a woman dripping in gold and designer perfume, the world tilted sideways. It started small, at least small enough that we brushed it off at first. A new handbag here, a suspiciously expensive wig there, a spa weekend she said was a gift from a friend. It was easy to ignore the cracks when the cracks were tiny. But once the cracks spread, there was no way to unsee them. It was a Wednesday afternoon when everything hit me for the first time. My mother walked into the living room, wearing a diamond necklace that could have paid our rent for 4 years. She spun once, smiling like she was auditioning for a reality TV show. "What do you think?" she asked. My brother nearly choked. I stared. My youngest sibling whispered, "Mummy, are you rich now?" She laughed. Not the laugh of someone amused. The laugh of someone hiding something. "It's inheritance," she said. "My mother's cousin passed. He left us some money." A lie. I didn't know how I knew it was a lie, but I did. She said it too quickly, too cleanly, too rehearsed. A cousin none of us had ever met. A cousin who somehow left millions. A cousin from a family that wasn't wealthy. The math failed before it even started. That week, she booked a trip to Dubai. 2 weeks later, she was in Greece. Then Italy. Then France. She posted pictures on Facebook, the Eiffel Tower, expensive wine, romantic dinners with men who didn't look older than 30. She was 53. Now, I don't judge people for dating younger. Life is life. Choices are choices. But my mother wasn't dating. She was showing off, as if she was advertising a version of herself we had never known. My brother confronted her first. "Mom, where is this money coming from?" he asked. She turned to him, eyes sharp, smile stiff. "You children don't appreciate blessings," she said. "I'm sorry the universe chose to favor me. Maybe when you're older, you'll understand." We didn't, and we couldn't, because there was no universe, no blessing, that transformed a woman overnight into a millionaire without a traceable reason. Something was off, very off, but the more we questioned, the colder she became. If suspicion had been tapping at my mind before, now it was banging on the door. One night, she came home late, perfume heavy, hair undone, shoes in her hand as if she had been out dancing. She stumbled in, laughing to herself. My brother, worried, reached out to steady her. She slapped his hand away. "I'm fine," she snapped. "Why are you all watching me like I'm a criminal?" A strange choice of words. Then her phone rang. Her entire demeanor changed. She went from drunk and loud to stiff and alert. She whispered into the phone, turned her back toward us, and walked to her room. I followed, not close enough to be seen, just close enough to hear her tone. "No, you don't get to talk to me like that," she hissed. "I kept my end of the deal for 10 years. Yes, 10 years. And you think you can ignore me now. You owe me more. You promised me more." My blood ran cold. "Deal?" 10 years? Promise more? My mind went straight to Vanessa because nothing else in our past had that kind of shadow over it. When she ended the call, she slammed her door shut so hard the picture frames rattled. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I asked her calmly, "Mom, what deal were you talking about last night?" She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. "What did you hear?" "You were shouting." Her breath hitched, just barely, but enough. "That was work business," she lied. "You don't understand adult matters." Work? My mother worked at a small clothing shop. There was no deal worth shouting about at midnight. That was the moment I decided something. If she wasn't going to tell me the truth, I was going to find it myself. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Mom's spending grew bolder. She bought a car, cash. She took another trip. She brought home more men. But behind the glamour, something was cracking. Every few days, she'd take calls in private. Her voice would rise. Her hands would shake. "Give me what you owe." I risked everything. "You think I'll stay quiet forever?" The more she shouted, the more the truth peeked through the seams. One night, after another argument with a mysterious caller, she screamed, "I will go to the police myself. I'll tell them everything." My siblings rushed out of their rooms. I jumped from my seat. "Everything? Tell them what?" She froze, realizing we had hurt her, really hurt her. Then she calmly picked up her purse and left the house like nothing happened. But I knew, we all knew, she was cracking from the inside. And whatever she was hiding, whatever she had kept from us for 10 years, was finally starting to crawl to the surface. The moment that finally broke, everything happened 2 days later. I came home early from work. She didn't expect me to be there. Her laptop was open. Her purse was on the table. And next to it was a small black flash drive. She walked in minutes later and froze when she saw me standing in front of it. She snatched it immediately. "You have no right to touch my things." "What's on it?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. And in that hesitation, I saw fear. Real fear. She clutched the flash drive to her chest like it was oxygen. "You stay out of this," she whispered. "You stay out of things you don't understand." Then she walked away. But it was too late, because now I understood one thing. My mother wasn't protecting us. She was protecting herself. And whatever was on that flash drive, whatever was tied to that midnight phone call, whatever deal she kept for 10 years, it had something to do with Vanessa. I could feel the truth breathing down my neck. And I was going to find it, even if it destroyed everything left of our family. People always say the truth has a way of revealing itself. But they never tell you how painful that process can be, how it pulls apart everything you thought you knew about the people you love. After the night I saw the black flash drive, something in the atmosphere of our home shifted. The air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. My mother stopped looking me in the eyes. She avoided rooms I entered. She closed her doors with a soft, paranoid carefulness of someone hiding a secret that could burn down a life. And the more she tried to hide, the more the cracks in her story widened. It started with small things. A receipt left on the kitchen counter from a jewelry shop. A necklace worth more than my yearly salary. But the date on it didn't match her inheritance timeline. She had bought it months before the supposed cousin died. A lie. Another one. Then came her passport, which I accidentally saw when she asked me to fetch her phone from her purse. Stamp pages. Multiple trips. All expensive destinations. Only one issue. These stamps also predated her inheritance. Another lie. Layer upon layer. Cover upon cover. She wasn't even trying to make the lies consistent anymore. It was as if she was slipping or losing control or both. What really broke the illusion happened one Saturday morning. I woke up to her in the kitchen on the phone, not shouting this time, but whispering urgently. "No, we had a deal," she said tightly. "You got what you wanted." I kept quiet. My stomach twisted. "I didn't take this risk for free," she continued. "You promised security." Risk, security. Kept quiet. Every word sharpened the edges of suspicion inside me. Then I heard a name. One name. A man's name. The same name the police mentioned a decade ago. A name they said meant nothing at the time. A name tied to the hotel. A name tied to Vanessa's last hours. I froze. She ended the call and nearly jumped when she saw me in the doorway. "You scared me," she said, clutching her chest. But fear wasn't the emotion I saw in her eyes. It was guilt, quietly simmering beneath all that expensive makeup. That afternoon, I sat on my bed with everything swirling inside my mind. The flash drive, the secret calls, the sudden wealth, the name she said, her cold behavior when Vanessa died, her panic now, 10 years later. It was all connected. It had to be. My mother wasn't just hiding something. She was trapped in something, entangled in something she couldn't escape. And she had lived comfortably inside that entanglement for a decade, until it turned against her. Something wasn't going according to her plan anymore. That's why her spending became wild. That's why her emotions snapped. That's why she started demanding more money from the man. She wasn't wealthy. She was running out. Her safety net was collapsing. And her secrets were about to follow. 2 nights later, it happened again. A late-night phone call. I was in bed, drifting off, when I heard her raise her voice, this time angrier than before. "You cannot cut me off," she shouted. "I kept my mouth shut while you live your life like nothing happened." She went silent, listening. Then came the sentence that confirmed everything. "Don't forget, I still have the footage." Footage, not documents, not receipts, not texts. Footage. My heart dropped. She meant the CCTV. She had something from that hotel, something no one else had, something that proved a truth we had never been shown. I sat up in bed, trembling. She had known everything. She had known it all along, and she had kept us, her own children, in the dark. Grief I thought I had processed suddenly resurfaced like a tidal wave. My sister didn't just die. Someone caused her death, and my mother had made a deal with that someone. The next day, I confronted her. Not aggressively, not loud, just steady. "Mom, what footage are you talking about?" She dropped her coffee cup. The sound of ceramics shattering on the floor echoed like a gunshot. Her hands shook. "You're spying on me now," she whispered, voice trembling. "I heard you shouting." I said calmly, "You said you have footage from the hotel. The night Vanessa." "Stop," she snapped sharply. Then, for the first time in 10 years, real emotion broke through her glamorous shell. Not sadness, not regret, but pure fear. "You don't understand the consequences," she whispered. "You don't know the kind of man you're dealing with." My blood turned cold. "The kind of man who was with Vanessa that night?" I asked. Her eyes flicked up, and something inside them gave her away. I stepped back. "You knew," I said. "You knew who he was. You knew what he did. You knew all these years." She said nothing. She didn't have to. Silence was confession enough. After that confrontation, she locked herself in her room. For hours, we heard nothing from her. No movement, no phone calls, just silence. It wasn't the silence of someone thinking. It was the silence of someone planning. When she finally came out, she didn't look at us. She grabbed her purse, her keys, and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" I asked. "To fix things," she whispered. But the look in her eyes was a resolve. It was desperation. She left the house. And I knew she wasn't going to fix anything. She was going to protect herself. Again, at the expense of the truth, at the expense of justice, at the expense of Vanessa. And this time, something inside me snapped too. If she wasn't going to tell the truth, I would force the truth into the light myself, even if it meant tearing apart the last pieces of our family. The house was too quiet. After the confrontation with Logan, Alex expected rage, threats, something. But for 3 days, Logan didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at work. Silence can feel louder than screaming. And tonight, that silence felt wrong. Alex walked to the hallway of his home, the same hallway where he and Logan used to joke around after school. Every family picture on the wall suddenly felt like a lie. Memories turned into warnings. He reached the study, opened the door, and stopped. There was a smell in the air, a faint cologne, the kind Logan used. Alex's heart tightened. Someone had been in the room. The chair was slightly turned. A book on the table wasn't where Alex left it, and on the desk, placed neatly, almost gift-like, a single photograph. Alex picked it up with shaking fingers. It was taken inside his own house, from the staircase, facing his bedroom door. There was a message on the back. "You took something from me. Now I take my turn." Alex's breath hitched. This wasn't a threat. It was a promise. He checked every window, every door, all locked yet violated. He looked outside but saw nothing except the heavy, suffocating darkness. Someone was already playing a game, a slow one, a patient one, a dangerous one. Alex swallowed hard, pulled out his phone and called Emma. She picked up on the second ring. "Alex, why so late?" "Emma, listen to me carefully," he whispered. "Is your door locked right now?" There was a pause. "What? Why?" "Just check." Alex held his breath until he heard the metallic click through the speaker. "Okay, it's locked." "Alex, you're scaring me." He exhaled, then said quietly, "Logan was inside my house." Silence. Then Emma's voice shook. "What do you mean inside?" Alex looked again at the photograph, still burning in his hand. "I mean he isn't finished." Emma drove to Alex's house before sunrise. She didn't even knock. Alex had already unlocked the door for her. She stepped inside, clutching her coat, eyes darting around the dim living room. "Show me the picture," she whispered. Alex handed it to her. Emma stared at it too long. Her face drained of color. Alex noticed. "You're not surprised," he said quietly. Emma's jaw tightened. "Alex, that's not true. I'm just—" "Don't lie." He stepped closer. "You reacted like you recognized something." Emma finally looked up, guilt flickering in her eyes. And that's when Alex realized. She wasn't scared of the picture. She was scared of what it meant. "Emma," he said slowly, "what aren't you telling me?" She exhaled, shaky. Then she walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and stared into morning fog as if choosing her words carefully. "I didn't want to tell you, because I didn't want you to think less of me." "About what?" Emma swallowed. "Logan didn't fall into this obsession out of nowhere," she finally said. "There's something that happened months ago, before he ever started making moves on me." Alex felt his stomach twist. "What happened?" Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "He broke into my apartment once." Alex froze. "What?" Emma kept staring out the window, her voice trembling. "I thought it was a one-time thing. I thought he just panicked. I confronted him, and he promised it would never happen again. I didn't tell you because you two were best friends, and I didn't want to destroy that." She continued, her hands gripping the curtain. "But now I understand he wasn't panicking. He was testing boundaries, and I let him get away with it." Alex felt his chest tighten, not with anger at Emma, but with a horrifying realization that Logan had been spiraling long before Alex discovered anything. "And that's not even the worst part," Emma whispered. Alex's voice went low. "Emma, what else?" She turned around, tears in her eyes. "After I told him I wasn't interested, he told me something." She hesitated. "He said if he couldn't have me, he would take something from you." The room fell silent. Not just silent, dangerous. Alex felt every muscle go cold. Logan didn't break into the house because he was angry. He broke in because he was following through on a plan. Alex grabbed his phone and keys. Emma startled. "Where are you going?" "To end this," Alex said. But Emma stepped in front of him, blocking the door. "No, listen to me. Logan isn't acting normal. He's unpredictable. You need to be smarter than him. Alex, if you go alone, he'll win." Alex stared at her, jaw clenched. She was right. This wasn't about emotions anymore. This was chess. And Logan had already made the first move. Alex sat down slowly. Then Emma joined him. "Okay," Alex said. "We do this together." Emma nodded. Together? Alex didn't sleep that night. He sat on the floor with his back against the bed frame. staring at the cracked window where Logan had slipped into his home just hours earlier. Emma slept restlessly on the couch in the living room, insisting she'd stay until morning. Alex kept hearing Logan's voice in his head. Some friends don't deserve good things. Was that a warning? A threat? A promise? He didn't know anymore. But dawn came, and with it, a new ripple in the nightmare. 7:11 a.m., a notification buzzed. Alex checked his phone, expecting a message from Emma or maybe his mother. But no, it was a message request. My boundaries were nothing. My dreams were nothing. My voice was nothing. That night, we barely spoke. I lay awake for hours again, staring at the same ceiling I stared at after our wedding. The same sinking feeling pooling in my chest. I didn't feel married. I felt invaded. And the worst part? Every time I tried to talk to Daniel, the same pattern followed. I'd express my concerns. He'd defend her. She'd deny everything. I'd be painted as dramatic. And I kept thinking, if this was year 1, what would year 5 look like? The breaking point came the day Linda showed up with paint cans. Just walked in, no knock, no call. Daniel wasn't even home. She set the cans on the floor of my office and said, "Let's get started on the nursery." I stared at the shiny yellow paint. My hands shook. "Take it back," I told her quietly. She laughed. "You're overreacting again." But I wasn't overreacting. I was breaking. "Linda, I'm asking you to leave." She crossed her arms. "No." I took a step closer, my voice steady. "Leave. Now." Something shifted in her eyes. She grabbed the paint can, marched toward the door, and hissed, "This isn't over." And she was right. It was only beginning. Because that evening, when Daniel came home, Linda had already texted him a completely different version of what happened. Suddenly I was aggressive. I was disrespectful. I insulted her. I threw her out. Daniel didn't ask what really happened. He didn't give me a chance. He yelled. For the first time in our marriage, he yelled. And in that moment, while he defended the woman occupying my marriage, I realized something devastating. I wasn't fighting Linda. I was fighting both of them. And I didn't know how much longer I could continue surviving in a marriage that didn't feel like mine. Something broke inside me the night Daniel yelled. Not because of the volume, not because of the anger, but because I finally understood something I had been trying to deny. He wasn't fighting for me. He was fighting for his mother. After that night, our home wasn't the same. We didn't argue every day, but the silence that settled between us was heavier than any shouting match. It seeped into our routines, our meals, our moments of rest. We still lived together. We still slept in the same bed. We still looked like a married couple from the outside. But the truth? We had become emotional roommates. And Linda, she knew it. About a week later, the real explosion happened. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was cooking a simple lunch, pan-seared chicken, vegetables, nothing fancy. The house was quiet except for the gentle sounds of the kitchen. Daniel was in the living room scrolling through sports highlights. For a moment, it almost felt normal, until I heard keys in the front door. The door opened, and Linda walked straight inside. She didn't even acknowledge that this was my home, too. She greeted Daniel first, as always, with a bright smile and open arms, like she was stepping into her living room. "Daniel, I brought you the supplements you forgot last weekend." He stood up immediately, grabbed a bag from her, hugged her tightly. She didn't greet me, not even a nod. I forced a polite smile anyway. "Hello, Linda." She glanced at me briefly. "Cooking again? That smell is a bit strong." Every word out of her mouth had a sting hidden inside it. Daniel didn't notice. He never did. Linda settled onto the couch and made herself comfortable, crossing her legs and examining the house like she was inspecting something she owned. After a few minutes, she said, "Daniel, darling, are you drinking enough water? You always forget to hydrate. I can see it in your skin." He chuckled. "Mom, I'm fine." She reached out and touched his cheek. "My poor baby works too hard." I froze at the stove. Baby. Poor baby. That one word made something inside me simmer. He wasn't her baby anymore. He was my husband. But no matter how much I tried to remind myself that, Linda behaved like she was the one Daniel had exchanged vows with. When lunch was ready, we sat at the table. I served the plates quietly, trying to keep peace. When I placed Daniel's food in front of him, Linda leaned forward and said, "Oh, don't give him too much salt. You know it's not good for his blood pressure." I held my breath. "Linda," I said gently, "this is how Daniel likes it." She tilted her head at me with that patronizing little smile. "Dear, I've known Daniel for 33 years. Trust me, I know how he likes his food." That was the moment something snapped. "And I'm his wife," I said firmly. "You need to respect that." The table went silent. Daniel stared at me in shock. Linda blinked slowly like she couldn't believe I dared speak back. She put down her fork, straightened her blouse, and said in a sweet, poisonous voice, "I think the problem, dear, is that you don't understand the dynamic of this family yet. The dynamic of this family. Not our family. This family," meaning the one she controlled. She continued, "A good wife knows how to support the bond between a mother and her son. You seem to forget your place sometimes." My place. Those words hit me in the chest like a stone. I swallowed hard and said quietly, "I haven't forgotten anything. But this is our home. Daniel and I make decisions together. Not you." Her face hardened, like stone, like ice, like she had been waiting for this moment. She turned to Daniel. "Are you going to let her speak to me like that?" And Daniel, God, he hesitated. He looked between us like a man being forced to choose between two burning buildings, one he was born in and one he built himself. Then, with a heavy sigh, he said, "Can we please not do this?" He didn't say I was right. He didn't say she was crossing boundaries. He didn't offend me. He just wanted silence. But silence, as I had already learned, only protected one person. And it wasn't me. Linda leaned back smugly, her point proven. My heart twisted painfully. I stood up from the table. "I'm done eating. Enjoy your meal." I wasn't crying yet, but my chin trembled. I walked to our bedroom and closed the door quietly. Not slam, quietly. Because even in my suffering, I didn't want to be dramatic. I didn't want to give Linda ammunition. But the moment the door clicked shut, I broke. I sat on the edge of the bed, buried my face in my hands, and finally let the tears fall. I cried for everything I had been holding inside. The suffocation, the feeling of being erased, the way I had been shrinking piece by piece ever since the wedding. And worst of all, I cried because I realized I had lost Daniel long before I even noticed. 10 minutes later, Daniel knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" I wiped my face and forced my voice steady. "Yes." He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He looked uncomfortable, frustrated, torn. "Babe, why did you talk to her like that?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Daniel, she insulted me. In our house." He rubbed his forehead. "She didn't insult you. She was just concerned." I laughed, bitter, exhausted. "Concerned? Daniel, she undermines everything I do. She treats me like a visitor. She acts like you're her husband, not mine. And you let her." He looked at me as if the accusation was too big, too heavy. "She's my mother, and I'm your wife." The air between us felt sharp. Daniel sat on the bed, elbows on his knees, and said softly, "I don't know how to make you both get along." My voice cracked. "It's not about getting along. It's about boundaries. And you won't set any." He didn't respond. He didn't have to. His silence was the answer. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest. The same heaviness I felt after the wedding, after the honeymoon cancellation, after the office incident. I kept replaying Linda's words. "You won't win." And I wondered if she was right. Because how do you win against a woman whose only weapon is the love of the man you're married to? How do you compete with someone who spent decades being the center of his world? I wasn't asking Daniel to choose between us. I was begging him to choose us. But it felt like I was losing a battle I never wanted to fight, against a woman who saw me as an intruder in a life she believed belonged to her. And as I closed my eyes that night, I felt the faint, terrifying whisper of a thought I never believed I would have. What if this marriage wasn't built for two? What if it was always going to be the three of us? For a few weeks after the List incident, things in the house were uneasy but quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. Silence that felt like a stretched rubber band about to snap. Robert was still trying to play the role of mediator, which only made me feel like he would try to smooth over a mess instead of fixing it. And Margaret? She went back to acting like the queen of the house, but now there was something different in her eyes. I don't know how else to describe it except she wasn't trying to hide her intentions anymore. Before, she used to mask everything with politeness, guilt-tripping, or motherly concern. But ever since I stood up for myself, she started moving differently, almost like she knew the game was changing. And she didn't like losing control. One morning, I woke up early to make pancakes. It was something my mom taught me when I was little, and it always reminded me of home. I set the table nicely. Fruit bowl, little jug of warm syrup, whipped butter. The kind of breakfast that makes the house feel warm. Robert came down first. He smelled the pancakes and smiled with his eyes half closed. "Smells amazing," he said, kissing my cheek before sitting down. For a moment, it felt normal again, comfortable, hopeful. But then we heard her footsteps on the stairs. Margaret walked into the kitchen wearing that expression. The one she had whenever she was preparing to cause drama, but pretend she wasn't. Her eyes went straight to the table. "Oh," she said in a tone dripping with meaning, "I didn't know we were having this kind of breakfast." I glanced at Robert, confused. "Pancakes? What's wrong with pancakes?" "What do you mean?" I asked. Margaret lifted one eyebrow like she pitted me. "Well, it's just that Robert never liked sweet breakfast growing up. He prefers savory. You know, real food." I blinked. Robert had literally asked for my pancakes on our second date. He'd eaten them at least 50 times since then. Robert cleared his throat. "Mom, I like pancakes." She sighed dramatically, as if he was a child refusing to tell the truth. "Robert, honey, you used to complain about them all the time. I had to force you to finish them. Don't you remember?" I stared at her. She stared at him. And in that moment, something strange happened. Robert hesitated, almost like he was questioning his own memory, because hers was louder. I felt a tightness in my chest. "Robert," I said softly, "do you like pancakes?" He looked at me and then at her, and then back at me again. "Yes," he said firmly, "I like your pancakes. I've always liked them." Margaret's jaw tightened so subtly you'd miss it if you weren't staring at her. "Oh, well, people change, I suppose." She sat down. She didn't touch the food. We started eating quietly. Then Margaret sighed again, loud, dramatic, theatrical. I ignored it. Robert ignored it. So she tried again. "You know," she said to me, "you can always tell when someone didn't grow up in a household with structure." My fork froze halfway in my mouth. Robert stiffened. "What does that mean?" he asked. Margaret smiled sweetly. That fake, sugar-coated smile she used right before saying something meant to sting. Just that some people learn cooking and cleaning very late in life. And it shows. I put my fork down, slowly. "Margaret, what exactly are you trying to say?" She shrugged lightly. "Oh, nothing. Just that some families teach discipline and standards, while others, well," she waved her hand dismissively. "They raise children who do everything their way, not the correct way." There it was, the insult she'd been circling around for months. She thought I wasn't good enough for her son because I wasn't raised the way she wanted. I felt heat rise in my face, not from embarrassment, but anger. "Margaret," I said, keeping my voice calm, "my family taught me kindness, effort, and respect. That seems like structure to me." She tilted her head with a condescending smile. "Oh, sweetie, effort is good, but standards are better." Robert slammed his fork down. "Mom, that's enough." She looked offended. Her, offended. "I'm only trying to help your wife. She should be thankful I'm teaching her things." I took a breath, then another. Then I spoke. "I don't need you to teach me anything, Margaret. This is our home, our marriage, our life. You don't get to correct me like I'm your child. Her smile vanished. Completely. Her eyes turned cold, truly cold, for the first time, and she said words I'll never forget. Well, perhaps you shouldn't try so hard to act like the woman of the house, and actually become one. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Robert stood up so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. That's it. Mom, upstairs. Now. I sat stunned. Margaret looked shocked, furious, but she went with him. And as I sat at the table alone, staring at the pancakes, I suddenly didn't want any more. I finally understood. This wasn't going to stop. Not unless something major changed. Not unless I changed. For the first time, I wondered if living with his mother had been a mistake we might not bounce back from. I stayed downstairs for a long time after Robert marched his mother upstairs. Long enough for the pancakes to go cold. Long enough for the house to feel like it was holding its breath. I didn't hear what they were saying, but every few minutes, a muffled voice rose, then fell, then rose again. I don't know if you've ever sat alone in your own home feeling like a stranger, but that's exactly how it felt. Like I was intruding in a life I was supposed to belong to. Finally, after what felt like an hour, I heard their footsteps on the stairs. Robert came down first. His face was flushed, his eyes tight, like he'd been arguing for a while. Margaret followed slowly, with a stiff posture of someone who felt insulted, but wanted to pretend she wasn't. No one spoke for several seconds. Robert rubbed his forehead and exhaled heavily. She's going to stay at my aunt's place for a while, he said, his voice drained. I told her it's not working here. I swallowed. He was choosing me. But the disappointment on his face didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. She's leaving today? I asked quietly. He nodded. In a few hours. Margaret didn't look at me. Not once. She walked right past me to her room, her shoulders rigid, her expression unreadable. I should have felt relieved. Instead, all I felt was the weight of everything that had been piled on top of us for months. And the sinking feeling that this wasn't the end. It was a pause. When Margaret's door closed, Robert collapsed into the dining chair and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. He looked exhausted, emotionally wiped. I sat across from him, searching his face. Did she say anything? I asked softly. He hesitated. Then he said, She thinks you're trying to turn me against her. My chest tightened, even though I'd expected that answer. And what do you think? I asked. He looked up, meeting my eyes. I think, he paused, choosing his words carefully, that I've allowed her to interfere too much. I should have set boundaries earlier. I should have protected you more. I blinked hard, because that meant more to me than he realized. But then he added something that tightened the air again. She's still my mom. I love her. I don't want to lose her completely. My stomach dropped slightly, not because he was wrong, but because the truth is, that's exactly how MILs wedge themselves between couples. Guilt, loyalty, history. I'm not asking you to lose her, I said, just to keep our marriage ours, not hers. He nodded, but the heaviness on his face didn't go away. A few hours later, I heard her dragging her suitcases down the hallway. Robert went to help, but she refused. I can do it, she said sharply. Her voice was calm but cold, the kind of cold that isn't emotional. It's strategic. She walked past me toward the front door, didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me. Robert held the door open for her. She stepped out, then finally turned around and stared directly at me. Her expression was strangely calm, almost too calm. Then she said very quietly, You may have won this round, but you forget one thing. She leaned forward slightly. He's my son. He'll always come back to me. The words hit like ice water. Not loud, not dramatic, but dangerous. I didn't answer. I just watched her walk down the steps and get into the car. Robert closed the door after her, then stood there in silence for a long time. When he finally turned to me, he whispered, I'm sorry. And for the first time since the wedding, I realized just how broken everything had become. For the next week, the house felt different, lighter, but also unsettled. Robert was quieter, not cold, just overwhelmed. It was clear he was wrestling with everything inside him. his loyalty to his mother, his responsibility to me, his guilt for not balancing it better. Every night, I'd lie in bed next to him, listening to his breathing change as he drifted in and out of sleep, wondering, was he regretting sending her away? Was he angry at me? Or was he angry at himself? But the worst part was what happened on day 7. It was late, almost midnight. We were in bed, the room dim, just the soft yellow glow of the bedside lamp. Robert's phone buzzed. He reached for it. As soon as he saw the caller ID, his whole body tensed. I didn't need to see the screen to know who it was. He answered, "Mom." His mother's voice was loud enough that even I could hear her muffled through the phone. She sounded upset, her tone frantic, but not the real kind, the manipulative kind. "Robert, I don't feel well. I think something's wrong. Can you come?" Robert sat up straight. "Mom, what's going on? Did you call an ambulance?" "No," she cried. "I don't want strangers in the house. I just need you. Please, Robbie." Robbie. She only used that name when she wanted something. Robert looked at me, his eyes torn, conflicted. "Can you stay here?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. Then he stood up. "I have to check on her. I'll be back soon." My chest tightened. "Robert, don't let her pull you back in like before." "I'm not," he said quickly. "She just sounds scared. I'll be back." But the look on his face told me he was already slipping into old patterns. He grabbed his jacket, and then he was out the door. Soon turned into 2 hours, then 3, then 4. I sat on the couch staring at the door, feeling each minute deep in the sinking feeling in my stomach. At 4:13 a.m., I finally heard the key turn. Robert walked in. He looked tired, defeated, but also strangely distant. "Is she okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He sighed heavily. She said she was dizzy, but when I got there, she was fine. Fine. Just fine. I closed my eyes. Of course she was. Of course she'd faked it. Robert sat down next to me, rubbing his temples. "I don't know what to do," he whispered. She kept saying she felt alone, that we abandoned her. I felt something sharp twist in my chest. "Robert, we didn't abandon her. We created boundaries." He didn't answer, and for the first time, I felt something I had never felt before in our marriage. Fear. Fear that Margaret wasn't done. Fear that she was planning something bigger. Fear that she knew exactly how to manipulate him. And fear that she might actually succeed. The next morning, Robert slept like a man who had run a marathon in his mind. But I didn't sleep at all. His mother had created the perfect opening. A fake emergency. A late-night guilt trip. A performance disguised as vulnerability. And the worst part? It worked. Not because Robert was weak, but because he was raised to be responsible for her emotions. Children of manipulative parents rarely realize it. They grow up believing that love means protecting the parent's feelings at all costs. Even as adults. Even when they have a spouse. Even when it destroys their new family. So that morning, while Robert breathed heavily beside me, I sat on the edge of the bed and said one thing to myself. This is not going to end unless I end it. Not with screaming, not with attacking, not with ultimatums, but with truth. While Robert showered, I went downstairs to make coffee. His phone sat on the counter. I wasn't trying to snoop, but when the screen lit up, I saw something that hit me like a slap. 20 missed calls, Margaret. 20. All between 7 a.m. and 7:18 a.m. Who calls someone 20 times in 11 minutes? Someone who wants to break them. Someone who wants to wear down their resolve. Someone who wants to remind the entire world. I come first. I didn't unlock his phone. I didn't check the messages. But the fact that she called that many times, hours after pulling him out of bed at 3 a.m., told me everything. She wasn't sick. She was escalating. And manipulators escalate when they're losing control. 30 minutes later, as we were eating breakfast in silence, his phone rang again. Her name flashed across the screen. Robert froze. I said nothing. He hesitated, then answered. "Mom." Her voice filled the quiet room, loud, sharp, dramatic. "Robert, I need you to come again. The dizziness is back. I don't feel right. I watched Robert swallow. I watched the guilt rise. Then, without thinking, I mouthed the words. Put on speaker. He hesitated. Then, he pressed a button. Margaret's voice blasted through the kitchen. Robert, are you there? I don't know if I'll make it today. My chest feels tight. My legs are numb. Everything is spinning. He cut in gently. Mom, did you call a doctor? No. She snapped. Why would I bother them when I have you? You're my son. Your wife doesn't understand. I felt heat rise in my chest. Robert's jaw clenched. Mom, he said firmly, don't talk about her like that. Silence. Then a scoff. A low, bitter one. Look how she's changed you. My son would never speak to me that way. My stomach dropped. This wasn't poisoning him. This was brainwashing. And if I didn't cut this cycle, our marriage would sink under the weight of her expectations. Alex's mother sat frozen, unable to twist a story or manipulate perception. Alex's siblings and Emma sat beside him, hands clasped, united. The judge reviewed the evidence meticulously, noting the depth of planning, deception, and greed involved. Finally, after hours of testimony, after the truth had been laid bare, the judge spoke. The court finds the defendant guilty of conspiracy in the cover-up of Vanessa, last name, S. murder, and will face the maximum sentence allowable under the law. Alex exhaled deeply. Emma leaned into him, whispering, It's over. You did it. But Alex shook his head slightly, eyes fixed on the courthouse doors. It's never just over, he said quietly. It's only over when justice is permanent and the truth is untouchable. And for the first time, he felt that maybe, finally, Vanessa's memory was honored, and the people who betrayed her could no longer manipulate or harm anyone else. The courthouse steps were quieter now, but Alex felt a new kind of weight settling in his chest. The battle had been won. The truth had been exposed. His mother was behind bars. Justice for Vanessa had finally been served. But victory had a different flavor than he expected. It was bitter, heavy, and profoundly lonely. Back at home, the house no longer gleamed with the trappings of deception. No designer bags, no lavish parties, no evidence of years stolen from them. It was stripped bare, but it felt honest. Alex walked through the living room, noticing small details he hadn't before. The scratch on the corner of the dining table from when Vanessa had leaned over to laugh at a joke. The faded photo of the siblings holding hands in a sunlit park. The smell of old books in the shelves that had been untouched for years. For the first time, it felt like a real home again. His siblings gathered in the living room that evening, a quiet circle of trust and tentative hope. We lost so much, his older brother said softly, but at least we have each other now. Alex nodded. And we'll honor Vanessa, not just with justice, but with how we live from here on. No more secrets, no more lies. Just family. Tears glistened in the eyes of his youngest sibling. I never thought I'd see this day, they whispered. Everything hurts less now. Emma sat beside Alex, her presence calm and unwavering. You did it, she said quietly. You carried the weight of the truth when no one else could. Now we rebuild. Rebuilding didn't happen overnight. There were counseling sessions, long conversations, and nights spent reflecting on the past. They spoke about Vanessa, not as a victim, but as a sister, a daughter, a friend whose life mattered. Her laughter, her dreams, the moments they missed, all honored in stories, pictures, and shared memories. Alex realized that justice alone wasn't enough. Healing required presence, truth, and the courage to face what had been hidden for so long. The family began to find balance again. Alex returned to work, determined to live with purpose. Emma continued to support him, her loyalty unwavering. His siblings started pursuing their passions, no longer weighed down by the shadow of secrets. Occasionally, they would sit together, silent but connected, and Alex would feel Vanessa's memory like a gentle heartbeat among them. The house wasn't perfect. The family wasn't perfect, but for the first time, it was real. Alex knew they could never undo the past. They could never bring Vanessa back. But they could ensure that the lies that had haunted them for a decade would never control their lives again. And in that truth, in that honesty, there was freedom. As the sun set one evening, Casting golden light across the living room, Alex whispered softly, "Vanessa, we've done it. We finally did right by you. You're safe in memory, and your story will never be forgotten." Emma smiled, squeezing his hand. "And together," she said, "we'll make sure the future is better than the past." For the first time in 10 years, Alex felt peace. The courtroom battles, the secrets, the betrayals, they were finally behind them. Alex stood by Vanessa's grave one last time, the autumn wind carrying a crisp, solemn air across the cemetery. He placed a single flower on the polished granite stone, the sunlight glinting off the engraved letters. Vanessa, last name, beloved sister, forever loved. He thought of the journey, the decade of deception, the mother who betrayed them, and the relentless pursuit of truth that had consumed him. And yet, standing there, Alex realized something profound. Vanessa's life had not been defined by her death. "Vanessa," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the gentle rustle of leaves, "your story is finally told. You didn't die in vain. And your memory, your life, will guide us from now on." Emma stood beside him, her hand lightly brushing his shoulder. "She's always with us," she said softly, "in the choices we make, in the honesty we carry, in the family we rebuild." Alex nodded. He had spent 10 years chasing justice. But now he understood that legacy wasn't only about punishment or exposure. It was about living in a way that honored her, protecting each other, and refusing to let darkness overshadow their lives. In the following months, Alex and his siblings worked to preserve Vanessa's memory. They established a scholarship in her name for young women pursuing their dreams, organized community initiatives for victims of crime and their families, and dedicated a small room in their home as a quiet space to remember her, filled with photos, letters, and keepsakes from her life. Every time they shared stories about her laughter, her courage, or her dreams, they celebrated the life she had lived, not just mourned the way it ended. Alex reflected on the mother who had betrayed them. She was now serving her sentence, stripped of wealth and influence, unable to manipulate or control anyone. The power she had once wielded over their family had crumbled completely, and Alex felt no triumphal joy in her downfall. He felt relief. Relief that Vanessa's truth had been restored. Relief that her memory was no longer a currency for greed or deception. Relief that, finally, the family could breathe. As evening descended, Alex stood by the window of his home, watching the sky paint itself in shades of gold and purple. He thought of Vanessa and the lessons her life, and even her death, had left behind. That silence can protect the guilty. That truth is powerful, even when hidden for years. And that courage, sometimes born of grief and anger, can restore justice where it was denied. He whispered a final promise. "We'll live for you, Vanessa. Every day, every choice, every moment will honor your memory, and no one will ever silence your story again." The wind swept through the trees, carrying with it a sense of closure, of healing, and of hope. The darkness that had loomed over their family for a decade had finally lifted, and while scars remained, so did strength, unity, and the knowledge that truth could always prevail, no matter how long it takes. Alex turned from the window and joined his siblings in the living room. Together, they shared quiet smiles, tentative laughter, and the comforting presence of one another. Vanessa's legacy was no longer a shadow of grief. It was a beacon of courage, truth, and the unwavering strength of family who refused to be broken. And for the first time in 10 years, Alex felt at peace. What would you do if you discovered a family member had betrayed you for years to cover? A tragic crime? Drop your comment below. I want to hear what you would do in this situation. Please do 3 things right now. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. Collision. And don't forget to comment below. What would you do if this happened to your family? I want to hear your thoughts.